recording. There we go. No one is ever going to accuse us of being, dancers when it comes to this kind of stuff.
I've never watched Rush Hour.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Cloud Whisperers. I'm David Broussard.
And I am Brian Cheatham.
And we are here today for episode 41, which we are calling CoPiloting the Cloud Whisperers. So, we're getting closer and closer to our ages now when we get to these episodes now. So 41 is great. And we have got a great topic for everybody. But first, Brian, what have you been up to lately?
I've been consumed by a band giant, the high school band. My son is a freshman. I think we've talked about this before, and he has his first competition. And people warned me at how much work it takes. Like it's almost overwhelming for parents of freshmen. How much? I mean, they literally have this, and I'm going to say the bad word here, but they have a Slack, workspace or whatever, and it's completely dedicated. It's going off all day long, more than Teams is, and I'm like, okay, look,
oh my gosh,
people that use Teams, please, work with me here. Let's lap the people in band, because they're bothering me all day long. But no, it's quite an experience, man. And as a parent, I think I would, after this year, after what we've been through over the summer and all that, just getting him ready and all that, I would highly encourage any parent that's on the fence about putting their kid into band or whatever, and the commitment that it takes and all that. By the time my son is done with this and all of his courses, AP and whatever else he's doing, there isn't anything he's going to be able to juggle. You name it. Last night he was doing his homework in the car on the way home. So I'm just letting everybody out there know that yes, it's a lot to swallow or whatever, but it's a great experience for your kids. And cool. He's got his first competition tonight, so I'm looking forward to seeing that. We get to. So for them, that's the thing, right? They get to see themselves on camera and all that.
Wow, that's awesome.
From the top of the football stadium or whatever. So that's where I'll be tonight, sweating probably because it's hot.
Well, we did have a cold front come through. It only got up to 94 today, I think.
That's a cold front here.
Positively frigid.
I like it.
Gotta break out the long underwear now,
Yeah. Long johns.
Oh man. Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm sorry that it consumes everything about your life, but from listening to my wife's stories about when she was in band in high school, that does not surprise me at all.
Yeah, they have a lot of fun. They really do. So band kids have fun too. So
this is true.
So how about you, David? What have you been up to?
Well, astute observers may notice that I am sporting a different headset this time. I, for years, have been using this headset for my Teams calls, right? This is a Jabra Engage 65. And one of my friends, David Warner, who was a guest on one of our episodes a long time ago with Hugo Bernier, they both work for Microsoft now, of course, he recommended it to me. And the reason is that it had really good noise, a really good noise canceling microphone. So that, now you've got a 75, I think, an Engage 75 or an Evolve 75.
Evolve 75, okay. I think, yeah.
The thing I liked about the Engages is that they aren't Bluetooth. They're wireless to their base, but they don't use Bluetooth. Yeah. And with that thing, first off, I could snap my fingers over here and nobody could hear it, and with the boom out, right? People could talk, the dogs could bark. This was before the Teams had good sound cancellation. But the thing I really liked about it was, I could go like 150 feet from the base station. So anywhere in my house, I could go and not a problem, right? Well, of it finally gave up the ghost. It works, but it was eating the first, like, half second to a second of whenever I would start talking, and that was getting it was getting I was watching I was watching some videos of myself that I recorded in Teams, and I was like, "Oh, that's just crazy. I can't do that."
Yeah.
So I, worked with Jabra on it for a number of days, and they were really good. I mean, lots of emails, finally got on a call with them. They took me through a whole bunch of stuff, and they were like, it needs to get replaced." And
Yeah.
I was like, "Great." So I started looking at replacements, and I ended up getting the Evolve to 85. So I went from a 65 to an 85 because I was looking for something that was over the ear as
Right.
opposed to on
Yeah.
the ear. Um,
These are close. Yeah, they're close,
yeah,
but
I
they're
I just
yeah.
but they're on the ear, and the other thing about these is, on the plus side, they are active noise canceling from the speakers, right? So it
Yeah.
filters out all the noise around me, which is always a little weird, like, I can't hear the fan behind me and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's,
Or the robber coming to rob you.
and it's got a good mic, and it does good active noise cancellation on the mic, 37 hours of battery, which is great. Uh, you know, it's a really good thing. The only thing I could say that I don't like about it is it's Bluetooth, right?
Yeah.
And so the downside to it being Bluetooth is its range is considerably shorter than my Engages, right? Whereas my Engage, I could go 150 feet away. This one, if I get down to the kitchen, I'm starting to get on the edge of I'll get
Yeah, right on the edge.
some
Starts
breaking up.
chopping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but, but all in all, liking it so far. I've been listening to music while I work, which is something I traditionally haven't done.
Yeah.
But it's actually kind of cool because, yeah, basically when I start, if a call comes in and I answer it. Oh, and it's also this one I bought the Teams version, which if I was in
Ah.
a Teams meeting, it actually lights this up with like green if I'm available, purple if I'm connected to Teams, and red if I'm in a meeting. And it's got lights on both sides, and it's got a Teams button over here, so I can just tap that and answer a call. Tap it to bring Teams to the foreground. So it's got some tight Teams integration, which is pretty neat. And I went ahead and spent the money to get the charging stand for it. And so I just put it in this charging stand, and it's
Yeah.
it's pretty cool. So
Yeah, I did the
so
same
yeah,
thing
I
with
mean,
this one.
yeah. So all in all, it was a big expensive money, but one thing I have learned working remotely like this is you really have to have very good equipment
Oh
if you
yeah.
plan to be able to work
Yeah.
remotely.
It
And
has everything to do with the endpoint. It has everything to do with the endpoint for sure.
it does. And organizations really need to think about that when they come up with their policies. It's no different honestly than like doing video conferencing. We've talked about this in the past, right?
Yeah.
If you simply say, "Oh, I'm going to buy a 1080p camera for $50 and slap it into a room with a laptop and call that a video conferencing system," it's going to be crappy, right? On the other hand, if you want to invest $20,000 on a really high quality room system, right, then you can actually have really good video conferencing with things that like
Yeah.
track the person who's talking and zooms in on them with a camera. Otherwise, I mean, you might as well just be sitting in the room and everybody on their laptops, right? Um, and joining the Teams meeting that way. And then why are you even bothering having a conference room, and why are you bothering having video conferencing in it? It doesn't make any sense. You get what you pay for is what it boils down to.
No, for sure. Yep.
So yeah, yeah.
Good stuff.
Well, since we are doing episode 41, co-piloting the Cloud Whisperers, I think people can probably guess that we're going to talk about Copilot, right? And the fact that Microsoft announced on September 21st, just a few days ago from when we recorded this on the 26th, that Copilot is launching as of September 26th. Now, there are some caveats and provisos and limitations about that launch, right? What is launching on the 26th along with the new version of Windows 11 is going to be CoPilot inside of Windows 11. And that's cool, by the way, right? Um, what's going to happen in that situation is Windows 11 is now going to have a bunch of Copilot features embedded inside of it, and I think that's
Yeah.
fine, right? I mean, that's exactly that in and of itself is cool, and so there's some really cool features of that are going to help. Um, they talk about as you look at it, and I've seen some videos. I haven't seen it yet because my Windows 11 hasn't dropped the new version. Um, but some of the things they've talked about are like you'll be able to hit the Windows C button and it'll bring open the Copilot side panel.
Yeah.
And in there, you can ask it to do certain things like change settings inside of Windows, right, with a natural language interface, and also just being able to ask it to do things. Now they mention and this is one thing I'm not so sure about that I like, right? They said, "Oh, look, you can like, go to a window and like grab some content and then tell it to summarize that content for you." And all I
Yeah.
can thinking of now is my friends who were teachers. My daughter's a teacher now, which we've mentioned, right? And I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God, now she's going to have to sit there and look at this and go, did somebody just go to Wikipedia and like highlight 6
Yeah.
paragraphs and then say, summarize this for me and then drop it into their paper and say, look, I've answered my question now, right? Um, but yeah, I suppose we're going to see some of that happening as well.
Yeah. The teacher figuring out who's, plagiarizing. They're plagiarizing Copilot.
Hey, I have a friend of mine who teaches at the Alamo Community College districts in San Antonio, and she said that yeah, they're already starting to see people try to use Chat
Yeah.
GPT to write papers, and they've got some tools they can use to tell them how Chat GPT ish a particular paper is turning out to be.
Yeah.
So,
No, I mean, just think about it. When we go out and do any kind of search on the internet, my son, I was
mhm,
helping him with something last night. He was doing something comparing a plant cell to a computer, and I was like, I'm sure that
mhm,
somebody's done something like that, and it was probably some sort of AI in the background that was answering the question that I typed in on my phone.
yeah.
And I'm sure that that can be challenging for teachers and all that. I heard the paint is it's going to automatically have some AI built into it too, to where um, it can recognize what you're drawing and all that, and make it legible, from what. And then the other the other thing that I heard too is that on with photos, when you're uploading photos and all that, it's supposed to kind of let you know, hey, or you can do a search based on what's in the photo, I guess. So there's supposed to be
Yes,
some stuff
I've
dropping in
heard
that.
that. I've seen that in Google, right? In
Yeah,
Google Photos, which if you think about it, how often do you really want to do that? Which is like all the time. It's like I'm
yeah,
looking for a picture, right? And
yeah,
and I don't know when I took it. I took it on my phone. And I've got like, I mean, I could go in my OneDrive. I probably go back to like man, I might even go back before 2010, in how far back I
yeah,
have, pictures and stuff like that, that I've stored online. I used to go back even further than that, but I mean, I'm just saying things that I've done specifically, you know, uh, that's a totally different situation. But but yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I'm always going and looking. I tell you the one I'm always looking for is the picture I took of the sticker on the bottom of the Wi-Fi router, right? So I could get the stupid the stupid password, right? That just goes on forever, right?
Now it's going to
It's like
know that it's a Wi-Fi password, David. So
well,
all
and
you have
and
to do
and
is,
probably and then we can have it plug a sensitivity label on it, right?
yeah.
To prevent me from sharing it with somebody. But seriously, I mean, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of times where I'm like, I'm looking for a picture of my dogs, right? Or I'm
Yeah.
looking for a picture of my daughter, or I'm
No,
looking
all the
for a
time.
picture
Yeah, all the time.
of like we've traveled to like Bunker Hill and we've traveled to like Gettysburg, and I'm like, I'd like a picture from Gettysburg. You know, that would be a really powerful way to be able to go and search. So I think having
Yeah.
that will be really powerful. I did hear, by the way, that they're getting rid of WordPad. So I know there's Notepad, right? Um,
Yeah.
but WordPad was their quick and dirty RTF file editor,
Yeah.
right? So you could write. It was almost like Microsoft Word, but without like 90% of the features of Word. I mean, you could get rich text, so you could do bold and italics. But if you needed to write just a really simple document, right, WordPad was a great
Yeah.
way of doing it, and it lets
Some
you
kind
read
of
RTF
formatting. Yeah.
files.
Yeah.
I guess now they're saying no. By golly, we're going to make you buy Office because you should just be buying Office anyway.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, when's the
So
last time you've been on a PC that doesn't have Office? But yeah, I mean, that's what I use. That's the use case for WordPad. I mean, I
yeah,
remember. Um,
yeah, I mean, and I did use it occasionally, when I'd suddenly find myself on a server that didn't have a copy of,
yeah.
Office installed on it, and I'm like, "Oh, but I need to edit this RTF document. So I don't know, I don't know what they're gonna do in that situation. If I'm on a server someplace, what how is that gonna work?
Yeah.
I did see the other thing that they're doing is they're embedding some of the OpenAI stuff, that you see in Bing Chat, right? They're gonna take those and embed those, so like, uh, when you're in Edge, right?
Hmm.
And you do a search, it's gonna leverage some of these large language models to help refine your searches, and it's gonna include, Dolly, which is their version of, I don't even know what the one that I always used was one called Mid Journey that somebody clued me into, but it's those places where you give it a prompt and it generates an AI picture. And so you say, like, a
Oh
man
yeah,
and a
yeah,
woman
yeah,
holding
yeah.
hands walking down the street, and they each have like 17 fingers or something like that. But they've gotten a lot better, right? But
Yeah.
these things, it's so you're going to have that ability to give a prompt and have it generate a piece of digital art at that point in time. And some of that stuff is actually pretty good. I've seen some people.
Yeah.
th- I'm not very good at writing these prompts. I guess I should take the generative AI course that Microsoft provides, and maybe get my a certification in generative AI. I'm guessing that's the only thing I can think of that might be causing my inability to do that kind of stuff.
So is that like the let me Google that for you?
Well, I mean, it's interesting that you say that because I mean, I think back to when I first got into programming. I
Yeah.
graduated college in 1990, and I went out and got a job as a programmer. And for years, I mean, for a decade, right? The way that you learned about programming was by looking at reference books. And I remember that I
Yeah.
had a VB4 reference book that was like this thick. I mean, we're
Yeah.
talking like 4 inches thick, that had all it had in it, by the way, was the function signature for every function in Visual Basic 4.0, right? And it just
Yeah.
simply told you this is the name of the function, right? These are the parameters that you can pass to it, and what are optional, what are required. And what you learned, well, if we had something that was called this, I probably have an on focus, right? If I have an on open, I probably have an on focus. And you started to learn, you would learn what are the different function signatures, and then you could kind of go out and figure these things
Yeah.
out. And then the web came along, and now it's like, and now even with CoPilot, right? I mean, there's a GitHub CoPilot where you can sit there and just and power in Power
Yeah.
Apps, right? You can Power Automate and say, create me a flow that does blah, right?
Yeah.
And then it goes out and generates the flow for you. Create me a flow
Yeah.
that takes incoming emails and strips the email out, email attachment out, and stores it over here, and then forwards the email to this address, right? And you're like, okay, you can just describe that, and it'll build the template for you, and then you have to tweak a few things, and you're good to go, right?
Yeah. I've done some
So
stuff with PowerShell. It actually does a pretty good job. Um,
yeah, so I mean, we're it's not perfect, right?
yeah.
But it is kind of cool in a lot of ways what it's actually out there doing and generating. So
Yeah.
I would say that we probably are going to, we're going to see continued improvements in those areas, right? And that ability to one of the things that Microsoft is launching as well is this Bing Chat Enterprise, right? Which has been around for a while, but that's going to let you use this large language model stuff from Bing and let you securely connect to some of your enterprise data. And it's going to have what they call commercial data protection, which means, if you take something like a file that's on your system and you let it be crawled, that information is not going out to the public large language model, right? So there's going to be some
Yeah.
there. There's a lot of people who are afraid of using AI because they were like, oh my gosh, somebody took like a piece of code and said, how do I refactor this code? And now suddenly that code is out there and it was proprietary, right? Well, you know
Yeah.
people should understand how these things work and use them
Yeah.
correctly, right?
Yeah. It's interesting to me because I don't think Microsoft really, I don't think any of us understand, but Microsoft, kind of leading the way here. I don't think they
Hmm.
understand the different use cases, in the long run, right? I think we won't know until people start using it to actually say, hey, I use Copilot for this and it was really good at doing this. Because Microsoft's sort of giving us little examples here and there, right? Of what it can do.
Yeah, but
But
they
I
don't
think
they don't they don't
that
always resonate, right?
they don't.
And
Yeah,
and
and that's why I think that it's going to be something that is going to be based on feedback, coming from people. Hey, I used it for
well,
this and
Well,
had a lot of
I'll be
success
honest.
doing
I
this.
I started to get interested in Chat GPT. I was like, I don't know what the heck.
Yeah,
why do I care about this? I saw people doing things like, write me a poem in the style of such and such about SharePoint. We had some guys at my job who did that, right? Write me a poem in the style of Shakespeare about SharePoint. And so they got like a sonnet back about SharePoint, and you're like, okay, I mean, that's kind of funny, right? And, write me a
yeah,
rap song about SharePoint in the style of P. Diddy, or something, right? And you're
yeah,
like, okay. But you're like, but how's that really valuable? And what's funny is I actually saw somebody who got Chat GPT to actually run a solo D&D campaign for them.
yeah. You
And
mentioned
and I'm
that.
kind of like, yeah, and I'm kind of like, well, okay, that's kind of cool. But what it does do is it gets you to thinking about, well, wait a second. I can
Yeah,
ask it, do you know about this topic? Right. And what do you know about this topic? And then you can say, okay, if you know about this topic, I need you to synthesize something. Now, it's not good at that synthesis stuff, and it probably never will be, or at least not for a
yeah,
while, be good at coming up with stuff. But one thing we forget is there's this whole theory in literature about postmodernism that everything's been said and done before, right? And so
yeah,
now the only thing you can really do is you're just telling the same 16 stories over and over again. Every romantic comedy is boy meets girl, boy gets girl back again. And you can change it around to where it's girl meets boy, girl loses boy, girl gets back again, or boy meets boy, boy loses boy, right? Whatever, right? But in the end, what's the same is in almost every romantic comedy or romance, right? Is that they meet, something comes in between them, and
yeah,
they have to overcome the challenge to get together again, right?
yeah,
Um, so or even when you talk about like Star Wars, right? The hero's journey. And I've been telling people, the new Marvels movie is coming out, right? And I'm actually excited about going and seeing it because I've really come to like the character of Kamala Khan. We went and saw Blue Beetle, right? And the
yeah.
family
Blue
all
Beetle.
loved it,
Yeah,
and I hated that movie, and I hated it because it was a reluctant hero stereotype. It was the guy who's becoming a hero, but he doesn't want to be.
yeah,
And so he doesn't, but when you look at Ms. Marvel, right, Kamala Khan, she is like the enthusiastic hero. First of all, she's got
yeah,
Captain Marvel posters all over her room, and she thinks Nick Fury is awesome, and all she's on. And then suddenly she gets superpowers, and she's just like, "Yes, I am a superhero." And you're like, I love that because it's so different, right?
yeah,
It's telling a story that it's not new, but it's certainly not one that we're seeing all the time. And so
yeah.
I'm just so done with reluctant heroes. But yeah, so everybody, Copilot is out on Windows 11, right? It's
And is it
limited. You can do some
preview
cool
or
things.
is
It
it
is
preview or is
preview.
okay?
It's preview right now, as of September 26th, which is the day we're recording this. It is in preview. Okay. Um, that means that it's going to start showing up in certain people's Windows 11s, depending upon when you get your updates, right?
When you reboot.
Once it does show up, yeah, and you reboot, then you can hit Windows C and it'll pop open and it'll probably tell you. And there'll be a lot of other new things that are inside of there. I think I saw something like 150 new features are coming out in Windows 11,
Yeah,
which
it's a
is kind
lot.
of cool, right? A lot of cool
Yeah.
stuff, right? So great stuff out there, but um, but expect that to roll out over the next couple of months, right? Um, Bing Chat Enterprise, same thing. That's something that costs money, right? So if you have an M365 E3 or higher license, it's included, okay, in Bing Chat Enterprise. Or you can buy it for $5 per user per month if you don't have E3 or E5 licenses. And
Got
then
it.
M365 Copilot, the one that we're all really excited about, right? Is
Yeah.
going to launch November 1st. And that one's going to cost $30 per user per month. And that's a lot of money. And we've talked about
They're
how
proud.
not everybody's going to need that probably, but
Right.
if it does the things that Microsoft claims that it can do,
Yeah.
then yeah, it could be super, super valuable for organizations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And interested to see what happens.
I am fascinated and interested in it as well. And you know, Brian, it means that we've come to that time of the show once again.
The
Remember what
time that
time
we
it
talk
is?
about the time that we talk about something I don't know anything about.
Yeah, oh yes, of course. That is and yet again, I have
Yeah.
convinced you to talk about something that you know absolutely nothing about in our one last thing. Uh we do talk about culture and sports and all kinds of things on here. And I was telling Brian that I have we get to pick we each get to pick two shows that we watch on streaming, right? And my wife watches her two shows and I watch my two shows. We get one episode of each one. So she watches two episodes of her shows and I get to watch two episodes of mine. Well, we recently had finished up a show and I decided to pick a new one. We finished up Carnival Row. And I decided that I wanted to try to watch Fringe, which is a show that was on Fox in the late aughts. I think it came out in '08. And it is a it is a sci-fi show, kind of like X-Files, right? But a little updated, if you will. Um, and it is absolutely fascinating, and it's got a lot of really cool people in it. The person that I like the most is John Noble. He was Denethor in the Lord of the Rings. He plays a villain or a kind of a wacky villain, and he's playing this very disturbed kind of mad scientist, but it's so enjoyable to watch him because he just chews the scenery up and he's so funny with his just weird non sequiturs and things that he says. Um, but we've been watching it, and the reason I brought it up that I think it's really cool is in every episode, and when they get to a break in the action, like a commercial break or whatever, they will flash this symbol up on the screen, and it might be like an X-ray of a leaf with like a dot next to it, or it might be a six-fingered hand with a dot next to it, or a frog with a weird symbol on it, and it's got all these different things. A daisy's another one, and I was going, well, what the heck are these things? I have no idea what these things are. I don't understand it. And so I started looking online and I discovered that there's 26 of these things. So what does that tell us? Oh, they're letters. And so in every
Yeah.
episode, they are giving you a code word for that episode. And you're like, oh, that's really cool. Like we were just watching an episode where the main character, she is kidnapped by these bad guys. She breaks free. They catch the bad guys and she's confronting him and he's like, you don't understand. We saved you. That's why we took you in the first place, to save you. And she's like, what? And then I go back and I look at the code and the word was saved. That was what the letters spelled out. And
Oh,
so
wow.
the code relates to something in the episode, and it just adds another level of just like insider coolness,
Yeah,
like secret decoder ring
that is pretty cool.
kind of thing. Yeah, so it's a fun thing. I would recommend watching it if you like sci-fi fantasy stuff. Then I'd recommend giving it a listen or giving it a view.
It looks like there's 5 seasons.
There are 5 seasons, yeah, and from what I
Yeah.
understand, and I've tried not to spoil myself too much, by reading anything on the internet
Yeah.
about it.
Sure.
Unfortunately, I fell into some stuff when I was reading, about the code, and I was like, "Oh, huh, oh, okay."
Yeah.
So they were
I shouldn't have
explaining
seen
one
that.
thing, and, like, in the season 5 episode where such and such, I was like, "What? Oh, that person is oh my god." And so you're just like, "Okay." So it is an end. We're about halfway through season 1 right now, and I'm enjoying the heck out of it. My wife, not as much, but I think she's starting to get into liking the characters now. And when you start like, we're both people that really like the characters, and the characters drive the drama for us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, she can listen to the podcast and you can
that's
tell her all
true.
about it and
That's
and
true.
sell her on it.
That would like increase by a factor of like 33% the number of listeners to our podcast. I think, as you already said that your wife doesn't listen to the podcast, right? Uh,
I play some things for her sometimes. She
well, there we go.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, maybe we'll have to have the wives on as like guests on our
Yeah,
podcast sometime.
that would
That
be
would be fun.
outstanding. That would be
That would
outstanding.
be, yeah. I could think of some ways we could do that, like have them read like fan mail. Oh, if there was any fan mail. But
Yeah, awesome.
well, speaking of fans, right? If you are watching this on YouTube, you can follow us on YouTube, at the Cloud Whisperers. So you go to youtube.com/, at the Cloud Whisperers, and you will find, the Cloud Whisperers channel, where this and every episode that we've recorded, and or turned into a video with some of our, I've gone back to some of our older audio podcasts and turned them into videos. You can find them out there on that. You also, of course, can go out to, any of the standard, podcasting services like Apple Podcasts. You can find us out there as the Cloud Whisperers. You can go to Spotify and find us out on Spotify. Just go there and search for the Cloud Whisperers, or you can try to type in 6WDNOVDPDL blah 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 blah. I
Yeah.
That's crazy. I do put the links in the show notes, so you don't have to worry about that. And you can always find us on Google Podcasts as well. Once again, just go there and search for the Cloud Whisperers. You start to see the pattern to this, right? Um, and we are happy to have you guys follow us there. Um, and we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to have you guys, give us some feedback on what you like or don't like about the show, and ideas that you have for topics. We are going to have some guests in October. I've already lined up one guest, for October, that's going to be really awesome, and I'm pretty sure that Brian has been talking about that as well. So
Yep.
we are fascinated by this stuff. We are really enjoying it, and I guess until next time, Brian, we will,
Until next
say
time.
goodbye and, look forward to the next episode of the Cloud Whispers.
Thanks,
Take
David.
care.